And if Shaw's in jail, then I'll update you.
They politely violated my constitutional rights.
It's not the government's place to decide who is a member of the press and who isn't.
One man cannot make a law.
I think we made a lot of great points when cross-examining their witness. So if you were filming there without that order, he wouldn't have said it was disruptive. He wasn't going to ask you to leave.
I truly believe in my constitutional rights, so I did testify at the trial. No matter what happens, I will hold my head up high and I will continue my fight for transparency and accountability on constitutional rights. I will never stop. I think his legal arguments fell flat on their face. I don't think that he was prepared for the trial.
It's their burden to prove the case.
Hey, what's up guys? Long Island Audit here, back again with another video. I'm here with my attorney, Jacob Uriel. We are right in front of the Schenectady City Court. We just got out of the trial. It was an all-day trial. Didn't expect it to be so long. The state's attorney called a witness. One of the officers inside that was there while I was recording, exercising my constitutional and statutory rights. You know, I did testify. I elected to testify. The reason I did that is because there is nothing that I could say that could harm my defense. I truly believe in everything that I'm doing, my constitutional rights, as you all know. So there's nothing for me to hide. There's no reason for me to remain silent. So I did testify at the trial. I'm going to switch it over to Jacob really quick, give him his, I want you to get my attorney's overall thoughts on the trial, and then I'll give you my conclusion. Jacob, what do you think about the trial here today overall?
Well, you know, I think we made a lot of great points when cross-examining their witness, and we kept a lot of evidence out that I think wasn't really relevant, that the DA was trying to bring up. I think the judge did a pretty good job hearing out our objections and sustaining a lot of the objections that, you know, we thought we needed to make. But I don't know if you mentioned this, Sean. I don't think you did, but she ended up reserving her decision.
Right.
So we don't actually have a verdict. What that usually means is that the judge wants time to think about the arguments, which again, I'm going to say is a good thing. There were some pretty dense legal arguments made here. Obviously, very simply that you have a right to record in a publicly accessible building, but there's some other nuances that we were getting into on the law that I can understand why the judge might want some time to review everything that was said. So I'm optimistic. I think that for the most part, today was a pretty good day.
Right, so I probably should have said that on the outset, that the judge has not made her decision. I have not been found guilty or not guilty in this case as of today. We will have to be back here on November 7th for the judge's decision. Again, I agree with Jacob. I think it's a good thing that, you know, she wants to look over the case in detail and not make an immediate knee-jerk decision on, you know, my freedom is at stake here. This isn't a crime, but it does carry jail time with it. Unfortunately, it's a violation that carries up to 15 days of incarceration in the county jail. You know, Jacob made a lot of great points as far as what happened in the trial today. I am extremely proud of his performance. He did a really good job. You know, we spent hours yesterday and in the coming week and the weeks prior to this trial preparing diligently, making our legal arguments, you know, talking back and forth. I'm not a legal scholar by any stretch of the imagination, but, you know, when it comes to my freedom and my constitutional rights, I like to take a proactive approach for sure. I thought one of the elements of this case was the executive order. Basically the focal point. Mayor Gary McCarthy's unlawful, in my opinion, executive order, which prohibits recording inside of City Hall, right here behind me. That's the irony of it all, is that this courthouse is also City Hall, and I had my trial right in the building where I was unlawfully arrested. Saw the same people there. You know, that executive order wasn't included in the evidence, not for truth. If you want to explain that, Jacob, you're the attorney here. I think it's important to let our viewers know what that means.
Sure. So the government has to put in the executive order through a certain kind of business record. They have to have a witness to testify to explain its authenticity before we can even get into what it says inside. It was put into evidence only because it was shown in the video, basically not for the actual order itself. So the judge sort of said was that she wasn't going to consider the actual text of the order, just the document itself very broadly. Now, how she's going to balance that, I'm not sure. Obviously, we did object to the document coming in its entirety, but she has said she's not going to consider it for what the executive order says specifically. And the only witness that they had who explained the executive order was the officer. he himself admitted that he wasn't fully familiar with the order at the time that he was trying to enforce it. So that's basically what it means, is that she's not going to read the order word for word,
Right.
which is a good thing, right? Because obviously our position is any order of this nature is unconstitutional, but it's their burden to prove the case. So if they don't put in the order, how can they say he violated it?
Right, and that's why you need attorneys. I could say it's unlawful till I'm blue in the face. Jacob found a legal way because, honestly, the district attorney, in my opinion, dropped the ball. They could have had it certified as a business record. They chose not to do that, and Jacob took advantage of that. And now the executive order is not admitted as an evidence for the truth of the executive order. I'm curious too, Jacob, how the judge is going to formulate her decision on this case without being able to rely on the actual text of the executive order itself. Jacob made a lot of good points regarding the executive order, because just in case she somehow considers the executive order for the truth, she already said that she wasn't, but we made additional arguments as to, one man, the mayor of this city, one man cannot make a law. He is not the legislature. He is one man. He's part of the executive branch. They enforce laws. They do not create laws. Judicial interprets, executive enforces, the legislature enacts laws and creates them. So I don't understand how he has this authority. And the district attorney didn't do a good job at all, didn't really explain at all to the court how it's lawful. He actually made an argument at the end in his closing that Jacob objected to, that, well, yes, they're right, it hasn't been proven lawful in a court of law, because that was one of our arguments, but he said it hasn't been proven unlawful either. Jacob, why is that important?
Well, part of the element of the offense of trespass is that the order itself to leave was lawful. And that's a burden that the government has. So it's not our job to show that it wasn't lawful. It's the job of the government to show that it was lawful. So, and I want to be clear, this is not a case that rests on technicalities. Obviously, both of us believe in his constitutional right. As a lawyer, I'm going to fight tooth and nail, whether that means, keeping evidence out that isn't properly laid, or making the bigger arguments that we were making about his right to be here and the constitutional questions and questions of freedom of the press and freedom of speech. So this isn't a case that's resting on technicalities, and I'm sure you'd agree.
Right, no. There's a lot of great foundational legal principles that Jacob introduced. I talk about all the time on my channel, People v. Leonard. It's a New York State Court of Appeals decision that says that public buildings, the public is presumed. Words are important. They stated that it was presumed that you have license or privilege to be there. Now, there would have to be a lawful process to where that license or privilege was revoked. That's what the state is trying to, that was their argument, that the executive order revoked this license or privilege. But again, the executive order is not in evidence. There was nobody there to authenticate it as a business record. And again, it's our position that it's not lawful. It's not a lawful order. It's overbroad. It simply prohibits recording in all of City Hall. Doesn't give you any processes in how to, any alternatives to record in City Hall. That's why I came here. I came here to investigate it. The district attorney said, this is what you were looking for. This is what you wanted. You wanted law enforcement to arrest you. I never want any law enforcement officer to arrest me, and I said this as much in my testimony. I want law enforcement officers, my hope is that law enforcement officers uphold the oath that they took to support and protect the United States Constitution and all of our constitutional rights. I don't know if the mayor made an executive order tomorrow saying that there was no crosses allowed in City Hall. Would the officers uphold that as well? Would we, the people, expect them to uphold such a ridiculous ruling, an executive order? I would hope not. I can't get in the mind of the law enforcement. That's the problem in law enforcement. It's a lot of order takers and order followers. And, I thought it was very important, Jacob, when in the testimony he was talking about how polite I was, how respectful I was during our encounter.
Right. Well, I think the key point here that the officer testimony was that other than this order, he
Right.
would have had no reason to ask you to leave.
Right.
So if you were filming there without that order, he wouldn't have said it was disruptive. He wasn't going to ask you to leave. And I think that's really what this comes down to. And really, it touches on so many issues, but fundamentally what it comes down to is, are we going to be able to have one person, one mayor, sign away the general public's right to have a full license or privilege to be somewhere, right? The statute doesn't say you have a license or privilege to be there, unless you're filming, right? There has to be a good lawful reason. And like Sean said, they're not going to tell you can't walk into a building wearing a religious item, right? That's protected. So is recording. So I think that's really one of the things that the judge is going to have to spend a little bit of time thinking about, because so far, and honestly, I think one of the issues here is we haven't had a decision on the legality of the order, even though a motion was filed. So I think the judge is kind of going to have to really think about it, because this wasn't something that was handled before the trial.
Right. Well, we did file a motion to dismiss, and we cited the legality of and the constitutionality of the executive order issued by Mayor Gary McCarthy, and the court inexplicably, they said that it wasn't the proper venue. I don't understand that. This is a court of law. Again, for the most part, I will say this. I did do a live stream before here talking about the recusal motion that we filed today against the judge to recuse herself, because she was appointed by the mayor. She's made some questionable rulings, in my opinion, regarding this case. But all that being said, I will say that obviously I was listening intently, taking notes while the officer was giving his testimony. It was just myself and one officer that's stationed here. That's it. Those were the total number of witnesses. And I will say that my lawyer made a lot of objections, and she sustained a lot of them. She overruled some of them. I would say she sustained the majority of them. She was listening intently. She looked like she was really thinking about what was going on in the case. She was taking notes. I never questioned her integrity. I don't know her. I don't know the judge. She doesn't know me. She can only go based on the evidence and what lies before her when making her ruling. But I will say, from what I've seen, she portrayed herself to be impartial, which is why we withdrew our recusal motion, in addition to the fact that after she was appointed, and I want to make this clarification for every single one of you, I think it's important for transparency.
Right.
After she was appointed by the mayor, she was then later elected by the people. And Jacob, that's why when we found out that she was elected by the people after the appointment, we conferred with each other, and we decided it was best to withdraw the recusal motion. Now, Jacob, in his summation, did use that as to create a point. What did you say about the judge being elected?
Well, I think part of the point I was making is that if CBS 6, which is a local channel, came in here with cameras, they would never arrest a journalist from CBS 6 for doing the same exact, right, exactly, same thing that you're doing. And in this case, CBS 6 has far less viewership than Sean, far less viewership, right? So the point I made was, just like the judge was selected by the people to make decisions here and to be the trier of law and the trier of fact in this case, Mr. Reyes was selected by the people to be their voice and to be part of the media because people are watching him, right? That's the only reason he has a platform, is that people want to hear what he has to say. They are interested in the value of his reporting, and it's not the government's place to decide who is a member of the press and who isn't. It's not, right? He's been essentially elected by the people, far more viewership than a lot of these local networks and their press. So part of the concern here is, why does the government get to pick winners and losers? Who's the press and who's not? And treat them differently based on that.
Right. And, I think it's important also to note that, the judge was elected by the people here in Schenectady. You had said that. I see myself as a voice for we the people. We have 1.5 million across all social media platforms of subscribers and supporters, about 30 to 40 million views every single month. And I try my best I never said I was an unbiased independent journalist. I never said that. I'm not unbiased. I believe what I believe, and I believe in our constitutional rights. I believe in our statutory rights. I believe in transparency and accountability in our government. That is fundamental to our nation and our democratic values. That's what we need. And to have one man arbitrarily write down an executive decree, I thought we got rid of kings and queens a long time ago. For a man to just unilaterally usurp the legislature and to implement this rule, this decree, saying that recording in and of itself is unlawful. But then when we go to trial and the district attorney is making his arguments, the basis, he says, for this executive order is to protect people's feelings. To protect people's feelings. To stop people from being harassed. Now, Jacob, I'm not a legal scholar or anything, but isn't there a law on the books already for harassment?
There is, and it has a specific definition, and it doesn't. None of what you did qualifies as harassment. I don't want to get into it, but
but there is a law for harassment.
There is a law for harassment. You
codified.
weren't charged with harassment.
That's
because
correct.
you weren't harassing anybody.
Right.
Under the law.
And again, the officer said I was polite and respectful, which I would agree with. I think everybody else was polite there too. They politely violated my constitutional rights and took my freedom away from me.
Except the guy who wouldn't talk to you.
Right, he
wasn't that polite.
He wasn't polite.
No,
he was rude for ignoring my questions. Wouldn't even identify himself. I just figured out who he was today, Officer Sims of the Schenectady Police Department. But again, I don't go into this looking for confrontation. I go, and that's the point they're always trying to make. Oh, he's looking for confrontation. He's just doing this. I don't create the confrontation. I document matters of public interest. I document public officials in the course of their duty and law enforcement, and however they choose to respond to me peacefully exercising my First Amendment right is how they respond. That is the story. They always say, what story are you working on? The story is, and I say it in the beginning of every one of my videos, so I'm kind of confused, but on why people don't understand what the story is. It's to ensure that our public servants respect our constitutional rights and treat us with respect. Recognize our constitutional rights and treat us with respect. So that's the story. And obviously here in Schenectady, they do not respect our constitutional rights. They do not respect our statutory rights. And that's something that we need to fight. The district attorney said, well, you didn't challenge this in a court of law. You didn't file a lawsuit and challenge the executive order by any other means. And my response to him was, well, you mean a court of law like this one? I wish you guys could have seen it. That's another ruling. Again, do I think the judge handled herself today with, integrity? I do. She reserved her decision. We'll see what happens, and I'll have more thoughts on the judge and the proceedings after she gives her decision. But overall, I think that she, presided over the case fairly. I speak the truth. At the end of the day, no matter my feelings on her rulings, I can only go based on what I saw today. But it kind of flabbergasts me that you guys, we're sitting here talking outside of the City Hall and trying to get every little nuance and every little decision that was made and what was said and what did the judge say, what did the witness say, what did I say on the stand, what was my attorney's closing argument, what was the district attorney's closing argument. All of this could have been recorded. There was a different reporter, not myself, a different reporter, David Schuster, who submitted an application to record the trial. It was denied for reasons that I don't understand and that are not based in law, which is why we filed a recusal motion. It seems anti-transparency. But again, the judge's ruling is the judge's ruling. No matter if the judge finds me guilty, I'm facing 15 days in jail, $250 fine. And we'll see what happens there. We'll see how things shake out. Either way, we are committed to filing an appeal. We believe that our appeal is a very strong appeal. Explain to the people why do you think in the legal sense that it's a strong appeal in terms of the evidence not being allowed in, the focal point. This is very important, ladies and gentlemen. The focal point of the entire case is the executive order. And for all intents and purposes, it's not evidence in this case.
So first of all, Sean, we are 4 for 4 wins.
Right, 4 for
so
4,
I don't
baby.
want to really think about an appeal, because I'm hoping very much, and I think that the law and the facts of the case support an acquittal.
Right.
So I'm hoping we won't need to appeal. That said, there were a lot of issues that came up that I think are appealable, including not getting a judicial determination on whether or not the order was lawful in the first place prior to trial.
Right.
And I think that the evidentiary holes, based on the government's failure to present certain types of evidence, or really failure to be, properly prepared for some of those arguments, I don't think there's a factual basis. In other words, they just didn't put in enough to meet their burden. So there's a lot of different reasons why we can appeal if we have to get to that point. But I'm an optimist. I try not to think about things that may never have to happen. I'm hoping that they don't have to happen. And I think we've had a good track record so far.
Right, 4-0. 4-0 in all the criminal cases against us. And again, this is not a crime. Unfortunately, it does carry jail time and a fine. This is not a misdemeanor or anything of that sort. I will just say that in closing, I don't want to talk to you guys forever about this. There's so many things that happened in the trial. The trial commenced at 9:30 in the morning, and it finished at around 2:30. So it was an all-day trial. Again, 2 witnesses, but there was a lot of legal arguments to be made by my attorney and the district attorney. I think his legal arguments fell flat on their face. I don't think that he was prepared for the trial, based on what I've seen. I don't think that he presented his argument in any way that would be convincing to a court. Again, he's talking about people getting harassed. The officer said I was polite and respectful. He's talking about people not wanting to be recorded. We're always recorded. There's no reasonable expectation of privacy in public. So I don't understand his legal arguments. He's doing his job, I guess, to prosecute a violation that he feels violates the New York State trespass law. But again, Jacob has submitted so much case law, People v. Leonard, and so many others, constitutional, that we have the right to film public servants in the course of their duty, law enforcement, the New York State Right to Record Act. There were so many legal intricacies of this case that Jacob brought forth in his opening statement, in his closing statement, again, comparing me to CBS, really getting in the judge's mind and implanting that picture in their mind. If I had a jacket that said CBS 6 and a microphone and a camera crew with me, and I walked in to go ask Mayor Gary McCarthy questions, would I have been taken to a jail cell and arrested and prosecuted? That sounds like something that would happen in Russia or North Korea. It's not something that should be happening in the United States of America. Do I think that a camera gives you a license to harass people? Of course not. It does not give you a license to break the law. But recording in and of itself is not breaking the law. Recording in and of itself is providing transparency in our government. I can't lie about what I said. The public servant can't lie about what he or she said. It brings complete and utter transparency. So I don't believe cameras give you extra rights, but it doesn't take away your rights. And you have a right to access public buildings. You have a presumption to have license or privilege to be there according to the highest court in New York State. And, again, the judge reserved her decision to November 7th. We will be back here. We'll have to take the long trip right up here to Schenectady and get the ruling. And we will come live. We will come live to you after the ruling to, make you guys aware of what happened and what we do from there. Hopefully we'll be celebrating. Hopefully we will be 5-0 as opposed to 4-0.
And if Shaw's in jail, then I'll update you. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Right. That's a good point, Jacob. If for some reason the judge decides to sentence a family man who's polite, respectful, a law-abiding citizen to the county jail, Jacob will be here to inform you guys of that. He will be here to let you know what happened and to, I just want you guys to know, no matter what happens, I don't think it's likely, but no matter what happens, I will hold my head up high and I will continue my fight for transparency and accountability, our constitutional rights, our statutory rights. I will never stop peacefully exercising my rights. It doesn't matter. Speaking of this, the two elements are knowing it was unlawful and it being unlawful. Those are the elements of the case, correct?
Well, yeah, and that you had to actually, a subset of that is also, even if it was lawful, did you violate the order? Which I don't think they showed evidence of that separately.
Right.
I don't think he violated the order as it was written.
Right.
But that's a whole
There's
different.
so many.
Right. There's a lot of nuances.
There's so many. I just want to let you guys know. There's so many legal intricacies in our defense that I wish you could just have watched the trial. There is an audio of the trial. I'm going to try and get my hands on that audio through open records request through the FOIL, here in New York State, and hopefully I can bring that to you guys soon. But that's why cameras belong in courtrooms. It will pick up all the intricacies of Jacob's arguments, the legal arguments, the evidentiary arguments, the motions that he files when the prosecution rests, that they fail to meet their burden. There's so many different details. It's impossible for me to sit here and report on it to all of you word for word. We could get the transcript, we can get the audio hopefully, and you can get a better understanding. But we just wanted to give you just a quick overview. I know this video is not too quick.
Not that quick.
Not that quick, but I wanted to give you a quick overview here, right outside the City Hall, right outside of the public building that I was just had my trial in, and just give you guys the update on what happened. The judge reserved her decision, and we will know more on November 7th.
You know, Sean, you mentioned one last thing I want to say. You mentioned the arguments that they didn't get to hear. What I really wish they got to hear was your testimony. I really wish they got to hear the way you explained yourself and carried yourself and really justified your conduct, because I think you did a great job of that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Again, I have nothing to hide. My testimony is my testimony. I went there with a singular purpose of exercising my rights, investigating a mayor. I had statutory rights as well, filming law enforcement that's stationed there. It's pretty clear. It's cut and dry. They try and hang you, he tries to allude to, oh, you're only doing this for money, you make money on your videos. Anderson Cooper makes money on his videos. He makes good money over there at CNN, Fox News host, the judge, the prosecutor, Jacob, everybody earns a living. And my earning of a living involves exposing corrupt government officials and promoting transparency and accountability in government, and that's something the government doesn't like. But I will continue to do it. Stay tuned to the channel for updates. Thank you, Jacob, again. I really appreciate you. He's one of the best attorneys I've ever met in my entire life. He's done some great work with me, very knowledgeable, very passionate, which is most important to me. And I want to thank each and every one of you. You taking the time to watch this video. This is not the most interesting video, but this is an informative video. And I appreciate you guys watching, because without each and every one of you, without we the people, I don't have a platform. I don't have a platform to be able to voice my opinions, to be able to report on factual events happening in our government, to the tyranny and corruption that takes place every day in this country. I wouldn't have the audience I have if it wasn't for each and every one of you watching. That being said, hit the like button, share this video. As always, stay safe, God bless. I'll see you guys in the next one. Long Island Audit. Peace.